What if you could build an organization that runs entirely on pure, incorruptible code? No biased managers, no secret backroom deals, just the cold, hard, transparent logic of a smart contract. That was the dream of the DAO. But what happens when that dream turns into a total nightmare? Let's dive in.
And that right there was the promise. The idea of a decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO, was supposed to be a revolution. It was designed to solve the oldest problem in business. Well, us, humans. By putting all the rules on the blockchain, the hope was we could finally create organizations that were truly fair, transparent, and absolutely unstoppable.
But has this grand experiment in digital democracy actually worked? Or has it just created new, faster, and frankly, more ruthless ways for the powerful to seize control? That's really the core question we're going to unpack today. So let's get on the same page. What exactly is a DAO? Think of it like this. It's an organization run by code. The members, who usually hold a special governance token, vote on proposals. Then smart contracts just automatically execute the results. The big idea is that no single person or small group is in charge. At least, that's the theory. Okay, so first, let's just take a step back and appreciate the sheer genius of the original idea. Why was this whole code is law concept so incredibly seductive? Well, DAOs were designed to solve a classic business headache, the principal-agent problem. In a normal company, you've got shareholders, the principals, who have to trust a CEO, the agent, to act in their best interest. But, that agent might just decide to give themselves a massive bonus instead of growing the company. The DAO's radical solution was to just get rid of the agent completely. By making every single token holder a direct voter and trusting in that unchangeable code, the goal was to perfectly align everyone's interests. But, of course, reality, as it so often does, had other plans. It turns out that even in a world that's supposed to be run by pure code, old human patterns of power find a way to creep back in. Way back in 1911, a sociologist named Robert Michels came up with this idea he called the iron law of oligarchy. And he argued that no matter how democratic an organization starts out, it will always end up being run by a small elite. Why? Well, because things like specialized knowledge or just the need for quick decisions naturally creates a sort of leadership class. And in Web3, this law hasn't just been proven true, it's like it's been put on hyperspeed. And the result is, well, it's pretty stark. In many major DAOs, fewer than 1% of token holders actually bother to vote. Get that? 1%. For the other 99%, it's just not worth their time or maybe the gas fees to participate. This creates this massive power vacuum just sitting there, waiting to be filled by the very few who do decide to show up. And here is where it gets even crazier. The Gini coefficient, right? It's a measure of wealth inequality. A score of 1 means one person has everything. Well, a ton of governance tokens have a Gini coefficient over 0.90. To put that in perspective, the most unequal countries on Earth rarely even get above 0.65. So when your whole system is one token, one vote, you don't have a democracy. You have a plutocracy, plain and simple, where the richest wallets can literally dictate every single outcome. So what happens when you combine that extreme voter apathy with an extreme concentration of wealth? You create the perfect storm, the perfect conditions for exploitation. And I'm not talking about some theoretical risk. We're talking about real-world, multi-million-dollar digital heists. Forget about spending months buying up shares for a corporate raid. Welcome to the flash loan attack, where you can borrow a controlling stake in a project, loot its entire treasury, and walk away clean, all in about the time it takes to refresh your browser. Okay, so here's how this insane thing works. A flash loan lets you borrow millions, sometimes billions, with zero collateral, but only if you pay it back in the very same transaction. So an attacker borrows a massive pile of governance tokens, giving them overwhelming voting power. They instantly vote for and execute their own proposal to send the DAO's entire treasury to their personal wallet. Then, in that same little window of time, they repay the loan and pocket the difference. It's an all-in-one financial superweapon. And this isn't science fiction. In April 2022, this exact thing happened to Beanstalk Farms. I mean, just look at this timeline. In 13 seconds, an attacker borrowed nearly $1 billion, gained a supermajority, passed a vote to drain the protocol, and walked away with over $76 million in profit. The entire heist took place inside a single Ethereum transaction block. It was over before anyone even knew it had begun. But these takeovers aren't always that fast.
Sometimes it's a drawn-out political battle, like the war for the Steam blockchain. After entrepreneur Justin Sun bought a massive stake, the community, fearing a takeover, tried to freeze his funds. Well, in response, Sun allegedly colluded with major crypto exchanges, using their customers' tokens, without permission, mind you, to vote in his own guise as network validators. The community's only option was to basically abandon ship. They did what's called a hard fork, copying the entire blockchain's history to create a totally new network called Hive, and just writing Sun's wallets out of the new code. So we've seen these really overt, aggressive attacks. But what about the sneakier forms of capture? The ones that happen right out in the open, hidden behind a very clever performance. This brings us to a really important concept: decentralization theater. This is when a project puts on a big show of being a DAO. They have community votes, forums, the whole 9 yards, all to look good for regulators and hope their token doesn't get classified as a security. But behind the curtain, a small, centralized team is still pulling all the strings. And these are the classic moves in their playbook. You've got admin keys that can just override any vote. You've got votes that are really just for show, what we call rubber stamping. And the big one, a centralized foundation that holds all the real power. You want to know a perfect example of this? Just look at the Arbitrum controversy. The foundation moved $1 billion worth of tokens and then asked the DAO to ratify the decision after the fact. When the community voted no in total outrage, it exposed the whole fiction that the DAO was ever really in charge. And it forces us to ask this really critical question for any project we get involved with. Who really holds the power? Is it the thousands of token holders? Or is it a handful of people who control a special multi-sig wallet? The analytics site L2Beat actually has a great framework for this. They categorize projects into maturity stages. Stage 0 projects have full training wheels, which means the team can literally steal user funds with their admin keys. Stage 1, which is where most major projects like Arbitrum and Optimism still are, has a security council that can override governance if they want to. Very, very few projects have actually reached Stage 2, where there are no training wheels and only the code truly rules. And if all those technical and political risks weren't enough, a legal bombshell just dropped. A landmark case, CFTC versus Oki DAO, fundamentally changed the game. A U.S. court ruled that if a DAO isn't a recognized legal entity, it's just an unincorporated association. So what does that mean for you? It means any token holder who actually votes can be held personally liable for the DAO's illegal actions. All of a sudden, participating in governance went from being a right to a massive legal risk. Okay, so the picture looks pretty bleak. I get it. Plutocracy, flash attacks, legal liability. Is the whole DAO experiment just a failure? Well, not necessarily. The ecosystem is actually learning from these brutal lessons and engineering some really clever solutions. One of the most exciting innovations is something called quadratic voting. So in a standard system, a whale with 100 tokens gets 100 votes. Simple. But in a quadratic system, the cost of each extra vote goes up. That same whale with 100 tokens only gets 10 votes, the square root of 100. It dramatically dampens the power of big money and amplifies the power of the crowd. Now, it does have its own challenge. You have to prove one person isn't just creating 100 wallets to cheat the system, but it's a huge step forward.
Another brilliant approach comes from Optimism. They created a two-house system, just like a real government. You've got the token house, which is based on capital, and it handles the treasury and big upgrades. But then you have the citizens house, which is based on reputation and identity. Basically, one person, one vote. And it decides how to fund public goods. This separation of powers is key. It prevents money from totally dominating the values of the ecosystem. It's really constitutional design for the 21st century.
So this is where we are. The first kind of naive version of the DAO has largely failed. It often ended up just reinventing the very same power structures it was trying to destroy. But the next evolution is already underway, and it's rediscovering these age-old lessons about checks and balances, identity, and the separation of powers. The illusion of perfect code-based decentralization is fading, and in its place, something far more robust and maybe even a little more human might be emerging. The question now isn't just whether we can code a fairer future, but whether we're willing to accept that the most important code was never on a blockchain. It's been in constitutional design all along.